Hi guys, I've said before that Brexit is damaging to most sectors in Britain, but some get it worse than others. And while David Frost and Boris Johnson were focusing on the lawnmower-sized fishing sector during the Brexit negotiations, one of the biggest industries in Britain, the arts, which of course includes music and cinema, was ignored. This meant life for British musicians travelling to Europe was a nightmare, and a red tape disaster for EU-based groups wishing to play in the UK. The Tory government has pretended to listen and find a way to fix this, but the non-solutions are exactly that. Here Baroness Bonham-Carter raised the issue with the Tory Minister. Have a listen.
The creative industries are, as I think the Noble Lord was trying to say, and as the Chancellor recently said, one of the UK's 5 high-growth priority sectors. Skills and talent from a global pool are essential to this success, but it is experiencing widespread workforce shortages, both from here and from abroad, exacerbated, of course, my lords, by Brexit. Does the Noble Lord the Minister accept the concerns of the Chief Executive of Creative UK that the Migration Advisory Committee shortage occupation list as a mechanism for addressing this problem is not fit for purpose? Indeed, some occupations from the creative sectors appear to have already been deemed out of scope. Why, my lords? The recently published Creative Sector Vision says that the Home Office, DCMS and industry will work together to maximise the effectiveness of existing immigration routes for the creative industry's workforce. How is the Noble Lord's Department planning to do this, while at the same time limiting such an essential route?
Well, I'm afraid I don't accept the Noble Baroness's proposition that in some way we are limiting the access to the United Kingdom for creative workers. As I alluded to in my answer a moment ago, our domestic law allows musicians, entertainers and artists and their technical staff from non-visa national countries, such as EU member states, the US, Canada, Australia and New Zealand, to perform in the UK without requiring a visa. A non-visa national can stay 1 month without a visa if they are invited to the UK by a UK-based client or organisation and paid by a UK source.
Okay, but you just said that there aren't any restrictions, and now you're pointing out the restrictions. This is nonsensical. How can you say there are no restrictions? We're not restricting people from coming in. Now, here's a list of the visas they need, or the exemptions. If there's one exemption, there's a restriction. But he's not being completely honest here, obviously, because he's a Tory minister. This is from immigrationbarrister.co.uk, and I'll leave a link in the description, do check it out. But it says here, UK visa and immigration routes for artists and entertainers. In order to undertake activities as an artist or entertainer in the UK, you will normally need to obtain a visa under one of the tiers of the points-based system. The points-based system has special categories and rules for those in the creative and entertainment industries. In most categories, you will need to be sponsored by an employer, so that's a requirement, that's a restriction. However, if you're going to be in the UK briefly or for a single event or activity, one of the visitor visa categories may be more appropriate, and it lists off a number of different categories. Now, the first one I think is probably the most important one that we'll normally look at, which is the creative visitor. So, what are the requirements for a creative visitor visa? In order to qualify for the creative visitor visa, you will need to satisfy UK visa and immigration. That you are a visa national, so a non-visa national can normally seek entry as a visitor on arrival at the UK border. So you arrive at the border and you apply for the visa then. That's not probably a good idea because if you have a load of equipment with you, you'd have to turn around and go back if you're rejected, which has happened. You are generally seeking entry into to the UK for a purpose that is permitted by the visitor routes. Okay, you will not undertake any prohibited activities. That would include working. So you're not allowed to do anything else. You're not allowed to do any other activity than the one that's written on the visa. You have sufficient funds to cover all reasonable costs in relation to your visit, including travel, maintenance, and accommodation costs, without working or accessing public funds. Now this is a concern for smaller groups that maybe they don't have a lot of money. And just think about what it was before Brexit. a German rock band, heavy metal band, they would rent a van, or they would have their old broken down van or whatever, and they would fill it up with equipment. Everyone jumps on board and they drive to play an event in London or outside London or whatever, Liverpool. That was all they needed to do. They didn't need any documentation. Yeah, make sure to have your passport with you or your ID card just in case, but that was it. Now they have to do all of these things, and they have to prove that they have money, they have financial resources to cover all of these costs. If they didn't have enough money for the hotel or whatever, they'd sleep in the van. They can't do that now. So this is once again a situation where Brexit is harming smaller entities more than bigger ones. If you're Ramstein or someone like that, you have the resources to cover this. You have lots of money. You can hire people to do the paperwork for you. Small groups starting out don't have this, or individual actors who've been offered a role in London or in some part of the UK. They don't have teams of people to do all this work for them, so they have to rely on somebody else or try and do it themselves. You will leave the UK at the end of your visit. Okay, you will not live in the UK for extended periods through frequent or successive visits, or make the UK your main home. Your application does not fall for refusal under the general grounds of refusal, which has also impacted some people where they thought they had everything done right. They were ready to go, and then the visa was refused for some reason. So when the Tory minister says that there are no restrictions, of course there are restrictions. you said there are, and I've explained some of them here. But this is extremely damaging. The Tories, including Rishi Sunak, have been saying we want to grow these economies, these industries. We want to grow the economy by boosting these industries. But you're not going to grow the economy by boosting these industries, because you're not boosting them. You're putting restrictions on them. And I said this before as well when we're talking about agriculture. You have government departments being, pressures applied to them to open this up, to allow more workers in from abroad. And they're clashing with the Home Office, who don't want to do this. So the Home Office's approach to this is we need to reduce immigration. We need to reduce the numbers of visas. We want to make it more difficult for people to come in. Why? I don't know, maybe it's something to do with Priti Patel or Suella Braverman. Or maybe it's just a general mentality at the Home Office. Is we'll restrict immigration, that's our modus operandi. But other government departments are, seeing pressure applied to them. Industry sectors, heads of industry are saying we need more workers, we need to make it easier for people to come in. And they're clashing with the government ministers. And until something changes, this is going to be damaging to many sectors. And we're seeing it here with entertainment and the arts. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.